All right, guys, here for our second interview. We have Andrew Follet. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, you are. Rhymes with wallet.
All right, I knew that. We've known each other for years. This is just a ruse to make this seem spontaneous. No, I'm just kidding. Andrew is a political consultant in DC, and he's done some work for National Review. He writes for them and basically knows how the sausage is made in the town, and has a keen insight into what's changing or where there's progress or where there's not progress. Because when you're actually in DC, from the outside, it can seem like, I don't know what's happening. Are we being successful? Is anything changing? But from the inside of DC, it's like a chaotic storm there. Because in an easy way to conceive this is, think about politics 10 years ago, like what we were talking about, what we were doing. That last 10-year shift that we've had, DC is experiencing that in like the last year or so. So and you can tell me if that's correct or not correct. And then yeah, so just to introduce more of your background, who are the presidents you voted for in like the last 5 elections?
So I am not that old. So my first election, I was just like a smidge too young to vote in 2008. So I wasn't allowed to vote, right?
Mhm.
In 2008. So because I wasn't 18. So my first vote was for Mitt Romney. Because you gotta. I came
Same
up
for me. Yeah. Oh,
during the Obama era, right? That was my formative
yeah.
experience. And I was in college during the Obama era at my college, which is named after the monarchs who led the Glorious Revolution, College William and Mary. So I got into that, and I was going to be a space person for a long time. I worked for a space agency for a little bit, and I was doing that. And the program that I was working on, which was to fly a robot on Mars, a Mars plane, right? And the idea was you'd fly this Mars plane over the red planet, and it would do all the science, and then it would set down and be a stationary science platform for a long time. And
And this
that
was while
got,
working for NASA?
yes, NASA Langley.
Okay.
So that was like I was going to do that for the rest of my life, right? I was like, I was already set to go. I had my job all lined up, all that stuff. And then former President Obama canceled the program, and
Oh, wow.
they did it to shift resources to global warming satellites. So I went completely ballistic. I got involved. I started really becoming a real political person. And I went to grad school at George Mason, which is probably the most libertarian of the libertarians economics programs. So I got pretty radicalized into that direction. I started working for the House Subcommittee on Space of the House of Representatives. And shockingly, when you work for the House Subcommittee on Space, you get to meet all the alien people. So I've met all the alien,
Interesting.
every conspiracy theory known to man. I'm aware of it because I was, the guy who the interns would say, okay, come talk to this guy. You're not allowed to hang up. That's just how it
Do you
rolls.
give credence to them having
No,
talked to people there? Yeah, the
no,
same as, yeah.
there are no
Good.
aliens. There are a lot of people who really want there
I
to be
believe you.
aliens.
Yeah.
I'm quite convinced there are no aliens. But
My
so
theory was that some globalist watched the movie Independence Day and was like, I know how we can get all the countries to unite under one government. Aliens threat.
do you want to hear my theory? So
Yeah.
here's mine. Harry Reid was the former Senate Majority Leader, and John Podesta was Bill Clinton's number one guy for a really long time. Reid and Podesta are hardcore alien believers. Like, they fully believe. And they appointed a bunch of guys who also fully believe. And all those people are now hitting retirement age, right? So if you're in the intelligence services and you went in believing in aliens, you're going to, because of the nature of intelligence, you're going to not know everything, and you're going to fill those gaps with it was aliens. if that makes sense. So now
That's
they're all
fascinating.
yeah. So they're all
Hmm.
retiring now. They're hitting the
Well,
retirement
because
age. And
they're in there, right? So
and if
yeah,
you
the point
read
is it's
like
weird because like they have access to some information,
yeah,
and even though it's bull crap, they can still get the wrong interpretation even from the inside, just like you could from the outside.
so if you're an intelligence guy and you get a document saying, we recovered a crashed craft, you're gonna, and you already believe in
Mm.
aliens, you're saying, oh, that's aliens. You're not saying, oh, that's a Chinese helicopter, right? Even though it's probably a Chinese helicopter. So the way you
Okay.
interpret things is the way that you go into something, right? So if you and I sit here talking about policy all day long, we're going to come up with a really libertarian solution. But if you were talking
Mm.
about aliens all day long, well, the alien solution, that's just how anti large groups work, So that's what I think happened. But anyway, let's get off of that. So I went into I worked for the Daily Caller for a while as their space guy, space and science. And now I do I write for National Review and I do some other consulting stuff for political stuff. So I help win elections.
Yes, you help win elections, and I mean we were talking about it before. You said that you credited my wife with saving America
Yes, you did.
because you were looking at the election data, specifically how the downstream elections, like the local races, the Libertarian Party got 1.5% in
Yes.
2024, but in the presidential race, they got 0.5%
Yeah.
because Chase was such a
Awful candidate.
thankfully, glorious disaster.
Mhm.
Um, and all the other stuff that happened in the campaign, and that 1% gap between the downstream and the presidential election is literally the difference in the election. So
Yes.
it'll be interesting to talk about how that's relevant for the next election cycle and how the political landscape has changed a little bit. Like where is the overlap?
So in our election system, all that matters is getting one more vote than the other guy, right? So you have a lot of
Mhm.
elections in 2024, like the Wisconsin Senate election. Hovde was the guy's name. I'm not sure if you can pull up the results in the window or anything, but there were all these third-party libertarian types. There was like one was the America First Party, and then one was libertarians, and a lot of these people are helped onto the ballot by progressives, right? And so in that state, Trump won that state, Wisconsin, and the GOP Senate candidate narrowly lost it because of third parties,
Mm.
right? So the fact that
Mhm.
third parties overperformed relative to Trump in the down ballot races is largely because of your wife, and also Mr. Oliver being a horrible candidate. That was a huge deal. So if you had swapped out for a 2016 Libertarian performance, Trump would have probably lost to Kamala Harris. It would have been a much closer
Yep.
election. But I mean, so it's hard to model these things because you're modeling like, oh, what would have happened if? And it's hard to know, but it is very likely. And again, there's anything of this size. There's never one factor, right? But
Exactly.
it probably would have gone in Kamala's way if not for the Libertarian underperformance because it did that down ballot in the same
Yep.
election.
And the other factor of that was obviously inviting Trump to the Libertarian Convention to make a pitch.
Yeah.
Trump having like a much more libertarian approach
Yeah.
than his first presidency, and getting that promise of Ross Ulbricht at the convention,
Yes.
which kind of triggered a shift in a lot of the social media influencers as well.
Yes.
Um,
So
so yeah, that was
politics is
all
all
huge.
about
And Donald Trump Jr. was speaking with Charlie Kirk about this actually, and Charlie Kirk credited
right.
that the Libertarian Convention thing and the Ross pardon with
Yeah.
at least like 800,000 votes based on
Yes.
his data and the people he was talking to.
I knew Charlie fairly well when he was alive. I'm still
Really?
close to him. Yes. He is sadly my second friend to have been murdered by leftist.
Wow.
And
Who's the other, if I can ask?
the guy his name is Greg Glyer. He founded a NGO that took on the foreign aid establishment. He was murdered in, I think, 2022.
Mm.
And our Soros prosecutor, so I live in Northern Virginia, and my Soros prosecutor literally allowed his murderer out with a nonsense insanity plea. But like, he will be a free man in 5 years for murder. And the guy had a manifesto, which I've read. You have to go to the county courthouse to get it, but it had a manifesto. The guy had a written plan of like how he shot my friend to death while he was asleep in his bed. So yeah, it was really bad. And that guy was he'll be out in 5 years for murder.
So he's like about to be released.
No, he just got convicted. Like, so he'll be out in 5 years. He'll be out.
But still,
like it takes a really long time to get convicted of murder or to plead to it.
So it's like activist judges,
yes,
letting people off the hook for political murder.
In this case, it was an activist prosecutor. So the prosecutor was basically just said, I'm just gonna say he's insane, right? And that was a way to get around the jury, because the case was absolutely egregious, and any jury would have sent him to jail for a really long time.
And why are they so motivated to protect these people, to incentivize more attacks?
That's part of it. Part of it is that they genuinely believe that crime is fine, right? Like you have to take these people at their word. Like the whole defund the police. We literally mean that in the New York Times. They really do mean that. They believe that basically when someone commits a crime, it's everyone's fault but the criminal. They basically think that it's because your dad was mean to you, or because whatever down the line.
Or because we didn't help them assimilate well enough. Like Piers Morgan was saying, or it was, who was it? Eric Weinstein on Piers Morgan's show, saying that the Anglo-Saxons, quote, in England needed to learn the foreigners' language and learn their customs so that they could feel accommodated. Yes. And then there was a judge who said basically like the society has failed these immigrants who raped and murdered this woman. So he also gave them like literally no sentence.
They firmly believe that it's everyone's fault but the criminal.
Right. So they're like, what are you going to waste this guy's life locking him up when he didn't know better? What's the point of that? It won't help. He said it won't help the girl, Yes. And then obviously now there's a movie about that is going offline. By the time we post this, it might not be available online anymore. But what is it called? Vigilante Citizen or something?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I saw that Elon put it on X.
So people are figuring it out that these judges and these progressives actually like are insane. Not just Machiavellian.
So a lot of the politics of it is that they firmly believe things that we think are that the average normal American thinks is so bonkers that they can't actually believe that, right? So when a consultant will run an ad for an election, even if you have the Kamala Harris on camera saying, trans kids, great, or whatever it was, the most effective ad of the last cycle was that Donald Trump is for you, Kamala Harris is for they, them. And even though they had Kamala on camera saying that, if you look at the responses, most Democrats believed it was fake, even though their own candidate was on camera saying it. So I call it the Democrats' insanity defense. That's not my original name, but it's the idea of, it's so no one can possibly think that's real, but it is.
You know what another example of that is, and it shows how so many of the right actually have adopted leftist presuppositions and way of acting just because they're so much part of the culture. But when there was that recent video of Charlie Kirk speaking at some female Turning Point campaign event, and it was saying that he was endorsing Erica Kirk to be the next CEO. And then when Turning Point finally posted that video, the Groyper's response was that it was fake, or the whatever label you want to use, the people who are going crazy over Israel. They just said they just believe it was fake.
Thinking about
So then it's
Israel,
like, it's not actually about the issue. It's not about the truth. It's about the revolution, right?
yeah, yeah. In my experience, the more someone speaks about Israel, period, the more insane they are. Like reasonable people do not know what Area C is, right? No one should have to. It's
Don't know what Area C is. I win.
You shouldn't. Um,
That means
but like
that means I'm reasonable. Good. Okay.
thinking about Israel is like thinking
Don't
about
tell the
Cthulhu.
audience what it is though, because then
I won't.
they'll be
I won't.
you
I
know.
won't share that.
Okay.
But it- thinking about Israel is like thinking about Cthulhu. It's not the kind of thing a sane person does and it seems
Yeah.
to definitely drive people nuts.
Well, and I can understand because I got really angry at this Iranian diaspora woman who's sounds like she grew up in the U.S. who was saying that she thinks that the Zoomers are communists, and so the Republicans are going to lose anyways. So we might as well invade Iran now. And she was just like, she's obsessed with the king getting on the throne, which is
Oh,
never Trump's
Pahlavi.
plan, right? And I'm like, yeah, and I don't know if she's being paid by him or what, but like, I'm sure there's a lot of people who legitimately want that. There's people who push it to different degrees, but she clearly cared a lot about that. She was talking about that before. And then she said the Republicans are going to lose anyways, so it doesn't matter. Like, and I'm like, we're just talking about how we're trying to prevent civilizational collapse, like the most important issues in the world that impact the literal future of humanity. And you're saying you don't care about those efforts because you think we're going to lose anyway, so we should
Yeah,
advance your like diaspora interest. That made me so livid.
yeah,
I understand that, but the problem is the reason I don't care about the Israeli guys is because Trump is the president, and I know
yes,
Trump has had a different plan, which we've discussed, which was not to appease Iran and not to get stuck into a ground invasion, which was Iran's two win conditions, but to use their technological superiority to decapitate their leadership, decapitate their military, and make a deal within a few iterations of bombing, which we knew we could wrap up quickly because we had the leverage when we knew they weren't going to open, tax us straight after we left, and etc. Like that was all the plan. It was, and it happened, according to plan.
yes.
I forgot where I
So,
was starting with that
let me
tangent.
just one comment on
Go
that.
ahead.
So whenever something like that
Hmm.
happens, my own method of how to handle this is you write down what you think the expected outcome is, and you write down what you
Hmm.
think the conditions are. So I wrote down at the start of the Iran war, I wrote down fewer than 1,000 dead Americans, U.S. win.
Hmm.
Um, and I wrote,
Right.
like, okay, what are the conditions for winning? Because you have to do that right up front, so you can't like rationalize it to yourself
Hmm.
after the fact.
Yeah,
So
that's what
I
I
thought,
proved to people because my narrative from the
yeah,
beginning was exactly
you're
the same
consistent.
at the end. I'm like, look at the link. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. So you have to
Go
go and
ahead.
you have to be consistent about it. Um, but I mean, look, I'm not a soldier. I don't really know. I'm not fighting in Iran. But it's pretty clear to me that America at least did enforce its will on Iran in the ways that matter.
Hmm.
Now, you any kind of coalitional war, you have divergent interest, right? So, like the Gulf countries don't want the same thing as what Israel wants, which doesn't want the same thing as what the United States wants. So, no matter what happens,
Hmm.
someone's going to be unhappy, right? And that's what we're seeing now. So you have
Exactly.
yeah,
Well, and also, like I said, like for me, the impact of the Israelis, or even you want to say like APAC, right? Not even Israelis, was they helped Trump, right? They
yes,
helped Trump, and they don't have the power to actually make him do something other than what he's going to do. And so that's why I'm like, I'm not bothered by it.
so
Um, uh,
hilariously,
yeah.
I always bring this up whenever it talks about Israel. Israel spends less money on U.S. politics than the Marshall Islands do. Israel spends less money on U.S. politics than Liberia does. Like, do they spend a lot of money in
And you know
absolute
what?
terms?
Not even Israel. APAC
Yeah.
is 4, 5 times smaller than the dentist lobby,
Yes. The
which gets
realtors
back
are
to like the
really
real
run
special
these
interest.
things. The most powerful
The what?
special interest. The most powerful special interest in DC is unironically the realtors.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
Let me think about it. There's a whole
In what
lot of
way
them.
do they?
Well,
Mhm,
the reason the NRA is powerful is not because the NRA has a lot of money. It's because the NRA can get
mhm,
30 people to show up to a city council meeting on Tuesday. Like that's the power, right?
mhm,
Same with the GOA,
right.
Gun Owners of America. The power of the realtors is that they have people in every single city in America who have their financial like interests directly tied to realtors. They're a cartel in libertarian terms.
Mm,
Like they all get the exact same rate nationwide. Um, like why didn't realtors go the way of travel agents? Like right now, if you book a trip, you used to have a travel agent. Now you just do it on Expedia. We have Zillow. We don't need realtors anymore, but they're still a thing because they have like legislation enshrining them to be a thing. They're the most
mm.
powerful lobby, and the fact that no one is aware of it makes it even more powerful.
What do they push with their lobbying power? Are they the ones that are preventing
The
housing prices from going down?
Yes, the mortgage interest deduction in the tax code
Mm,
is their big thing. Like that's how they get paid. Because they are paid on commission, they make a ton of money. The bigger the house sale, the higher the absolute value is. Right? If you all make 3% on something,
mhm,
3% of a million is better than 3% of 50,000. You know, it just is. So yeah, they're one of the biggest reasons that we have really insane housing in the U.S. Now we have other countries have insane housing too. Like it's not the only reason, but it's one of the
mhm.
reasons. Like Canada's housing is even
And do
more
they
insane.
lobby for zoning?
Yes,
Do they lobby for like everything that could indirectly raise
yes,
the price of a home, even if it has
yes,
nothing to do with realtorship?
yes.
And
And
they
they're
control
also
basically
powerful.
enough.
Yeah,
Mhm,
everywhere. So a realtor, if you're like at a zoning meeting, you live in Austin, right? Or so Houston
mhm,
has no zoning, right? But like a lot of these cities, um, if they ever try to change anything about zoning, a realtor will be there complaining about it. And politicians are scared of nothing more in this world than having someone show up to the meeting and complain. That actually does move the needle to
mhm.
them. They hate being yelled at. So no politician will ever go against someone who like they're never going against the realtors because they know that they'd be yelled at. And they also contribute to everyone. Almost every politician is taking money from the realtors at the local level.
And what about Rand Paul, right? Because maybe Rand Paul, his policies clearly would lead to lower housing prices,
Yes.
deregulation. Do they
Yeah.
still like go after him, or is he someone who's like a lost cause for them?
They
Like,
know
how
that
would
they
that work?
can't get they know they can't get him, right? But
Mm,
they are very bipartisan and they have a there's actually video of their former treasurer literally saying, "We're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, we're the realtor party." They are the most powerful. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
people don't
Beating her,
understand this is how people engage in
yes.
in politics. Like, this is why the licensing thing is such a problem, right?
Uh,
Because you have
One of my proudest
I was
political
talking to
achievements was beating her.
mhm.
I was very proud of that because
What's
she
what was
outstepped
your proudest achievement?
beating that lady in a special election because she was a realtor and she was their finance chair and had a ton of money. But I beat
Mm,
her and I was really proud of myself. Um,
right. Beating a realtor is like the ultimate
they're hard.
uh like
They're really
beating
tough.
Bowser and Mario. Uh
Yes. Yeah. The re- the realtors are the most powerful lobby in DC, in my opinion. I mean, and think about it. No one opposes them. Like if you're the
well, mhm,
NRA, you have
right.
a vested interest who hates your guts. If you're APAC,
Yeah.
you have a vested interest that hates your guts. But no one's against realtors except me. Like, and there's one of
Yeah,
me.
well, and it's also a perfect example of like the imbalance of interest because it affects this impacts realtors
Mhm.
more than the rest of us than you individually as a
Yeah.
percentage. Obviously, the
Yeah.
rest of us overall are impacted more by the
Yes.
high prices, but for an individual perspective, they're more motivated, and it's the
Concentrated
same with
benefits
like
dispersed cost.
yes, and it's the same with dentists and all the doctors
Yes.
licensing, right? Because the doctors they went to the licenses are restricted and capped, right, to prevent the numbers of doctors from going up and reducing the wages.
Yes.
And the universities that hand out these licenses, they charge an enormous exorbitant amount, and so
Yes.
then the doctors have to be making a salary based on a suppressed labor force if they're ever going to pay off the university debt.
Yes.
So they're like terrified of opening that up,
Yeah.
um,
The
to
AMA
people
is
who
also
can
very evil.
and learn and get licensed without that cost. And
Yes.
so then they're really powerful politically because like every single expert in the field is going to be telling you that this needs to happen, that
Yes.
needs to happen, right? Like
Yeah.
the vast majority of the people who are supposed to be the authority on this, right, are going to be saying that's a disaster. Like if you advocate for loosening licensing restrictions and people just hear a bunch of doctors freaking out, they're like, well, who knows better, like the doctor
Yeah.
or this evil
Yeah.
capitalist guy
The most
who wants
powerful
to give you affordable health care.
Yeah. The most powerful guys in DC are always the people who aren't opposed, right? And doctors are a
Who
good
aren't what?
example, who have no real opposition, right? So
Mm,
I'm not a business person, I'm a capitalist. There's a difference, right?
mhm, right.
But with a lot of with doctors in particular, like the licensing scheme like you were talking about, it's unnecessary, it drives up cost, and it also drives in this very deep vested interest that has no incentive, that has every
Mhm.
incentive to raise prices, right? And because to
Well, it
them,
kills people too.
yeah, yeah, it does.
Mhm.
Yep.
Right, it kills people because the states control their own have each state has a monopoly on licensing for their state, but all of those licensing regimes are basically controlled by the AMA. So it's like
Yeah,
standardized across
yeah,
all of the states. And at this point, the doctors are basically only taught treatments that correlate with the most expensive drugs with IP. It's like when you turn on satellite radio and like they play a very limited selection of songs, often not the best songs. It's
yeah,
because those are the songs with the studio owned
yeah,
IP. They'll only play that like satellite 2010s over and over again.
yeah.
So that's the same thing with what the schools will pump out. So they're literally torturing people, right? They're like cutting out they're giving them steroids that make them blind, and then that doesn't work. So they're like cutting out their colons when people could have just changed their diet, and oh, maybe not everybody's going to take the doctor's advice and change their diet. Okay. But a lot more would if the doctor
Yeah.
was not aggressively selling this other path while not telling them about the potential. You don't
It's a
have to go
cartel,
through all
and it's
this
a cartel
suffering
with good
actually.
branding. Uh,
With what? Good
The
branding.
AMA is a cartel, and they have great branding, which is the whole problem. Like, think of how
Mm,
many TV shows are about doctors, or how many like dramas are about medical dramas. People love
mhm,
that. And the insurance companies are also, I mean, like, so the third party payment thing is also a huge deal, but like, really, we should blame a lot more of America's healthcare issues on the AMA than we do. And we don't do that because
oh,
doctors generally
100%.
have cost depression. Yeah. It's very sad.
Yeah, it causes like they kill millions of people a year and cause like tens of millions of people to experience untold suffering and like
Yes.
destroy
And there's no
families
competition.
and savings and
Yeah.
hmm
And like, I mean, you're an ag tech, right? Primarily.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah.
So like, there's no equivalent of like competition in the medical industry, really, right? It's very cartelized. It's very you take what we give you. It's very do as I say, right? And that's the problem in a lot of ways. And that's why no one trusts it. Like, why do I trust McDonald's to make a hamburger? Because if McDonald's doesn't do a good job, I can go to Burger King, right? And the competition
hmm
drives price down, and it increases quality, and it drives it down to a point where the market clears, and you get a good result, right? But that's
hmm
not what happens in medicine because uh, the AMA and because of the insurance cartel. You have a cartel, and that's
This
the
is a
problem.
great, yeah, because there's the classic chart of prices going up
Yeah.
and or down in various industries over time relative to inflation. And healthcare obviously balloons more than anything. And, it's one of the most regulated aspects. People might think, oh, but, maybe it's not because it's regulated, maybe because it's high tech or expensive or something. But then you can compare it directly to cosmetic surgery,
Yeah.
right? And the
Yes.
cosmetic surgery prices have been collapsing faster than TVs. Um, did, and obviously getting a lot better, which is not, they didn't do the best job on clavicular, but like the stuff that they're doing, the improvements and the costs are it's
It's
radically
the only
accelerated, the
it went
industry has. I
down.
mean, they can turn
Yeah.
men into women now. Okay, like if only we can apply that ingenuity to actually making people healthier,
And what's awful is that
we can get the same
everywhere
results
else
in the
in the
real medical
world,
field.
so America does not have
Mhm.
a good capitalist health system, but ours is better than everyone else's, which is sad, right? Like you actually have
Well, I
like
guess the only exceptions are the tourist destinations in
yes,
developing countries, right, where they don't have
yes,
a entrenched bureaucracy
like
like
Singapore's is pretty
Thailand
great.
or yeah,
So I used to when I
right.
long ago when I was in grad school at Mason, I taught a class on the Affordable Care Act, right? And it was
Mhm,
hilarious because we're like,
mhm,
oh gosh, I wish we had a Singapore system here. It'd be so great. Singapore is an amazing healthcare system. It's the most market one in the
mhm.
world, arguably. Um, but
Interesting. I've lived
what's
there.
oh really? I've never been there, but I've told that they have absolute like it's the best healthcare system ever. Because it's actually driven by
Mm,
competition, and like
mm,
competition really does solve all the problems. Like there's a reason. Like
mm,
you just can't have any regulatory body is always going to have huge incentives to be captured by the existing cartel, right? They're just better at it, right? Um,
This is the way
and
I frame it is
yeah,
they sell regulatory agencies under the pretense that they're going to protect you from an asymmetry of power with large corporations, when in reality, they're creating a single access point from which large corporations can control the entire economy.
yeah, big business loves big government. They don't want to
Yep.
compete, right? Competition is hard. It's much easier just to be like have your weird little monopoly. So if
Hmm.
you're a
And
healthcare,
mhm.
go ahead.
Yeah, one
Sorry,
way
go
to
ahead.
show it is like, what do you mean, like a monopoly or a cartel? Like, what are they doing that, like, what kind of, how could competition lower prices? It's like, well, just think of your basic, like, even blood tests or like a full medical checkup, right? Which is a whole process in the US where you might have to go many places, might be thousands of dollars. The actual, if you're talking about making a business plan, the actual cost of doing those tests, you could do a full checkup for under $100 and be making like an 80% margin.
Yeah,
Um, because that's the actual cost of like the machinery and the technology. And a lot of operations and surgeries and everything right now, they're being done with a lot of things are being done with medical devices. And the medical device salesman, my cousin was one, they know more about how the medical device works and what it does and how to use it than the surgeon. And
yeah,
so they're actually like the medical device salesmen are doing a lot of these surgeries, and they have to have a surgeon present in the room just for like the legal requirement, but they're not
yeah,
actually the expert. So you're disconnecting. Everything is about knowledge and technology transfer. Like how much knowledge and technology can you disperse throughout? And we don't act like that at all. We act based on like not what you know or what you can do, but based on like legal monopoly cartel.
yeah. So like my area of specialty is energy and science stuff, right? And so
Mm,
I'm not a healthcare
mhm,
pro, but what's in those as another area you have like these very over-regulated, very monopolistic, very like credentialism. That's just this. I call it the divine right of
mhm,
college degrees because people with degrees from elite universities truly believe that they
mhm,
have a moral imperative to tell you what to do and that you'll be better if you just shut up and listen to them. They think that they know more about your life than you do, and that if you just shut up and be a good little cell in their spreadsheet, that would be the best possible
mhm.
outcome because you're too stupid. Like they really do believe that,
They
right?
do. Yes.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah. I worked. Yeah. Finish your point. Unless.
but it's insane because like, look, I went to a really nice university, but
Uh-huh.
the kind of it's so like no one person knows knows better at everything than dumbest person in
Mhm.
the world, right? The dumbest person in the world might know
Yeah.
more about the proper temperature to cook a steak than I do, right? I might be smarter than that person in
Mhm.
every other area, but they know more about than me in some things, right? They're more of the expert.
Yes.
And because of that, you can have beneficial gains from trade, right? Even if they don't, by the way, my time isn't infinite, so I can just pay them to do it for me, right? I arguably am better at carpentry than like the guy who fixed my fence, but
Mhm.
it's not worth my time, right?
Mhm.
So, and quite frankly, it makes a lot of sense to just trade. And when you have a government that comes in and says, "Oh, you're not allowed to do that because I don't know." Like, look at the air conditioning incident in the UK right now, where like, "Oh, we just know that air conditioners are bad. You can't have one." People are dying. Like they're actually dying because of these idiotic rules. And in general, people can handle freedom. They can they can handle it. They really can. And like maybe there's a few exceptions. Maybe somewhere you can endlessly litigate of like, oh, should we? Does that mean legalizing recreational heroin? I say no, but some people say yes.
Mhm.
Um, and
Mhm.
but in the vast majority of the
Or
cases,
what about
the
this doctor that will do fraud, right?
yeah,
This
yeah,
like it may be an immigrant doctor, right? Because people that's a low trust creating
yeah,
dynamic, right? And low trust leads to more demand for regulations. So, like a good example is trucking licenses, right? Like we can't have immigrants just like driving trucks and killing people.
I,
That's
I
like a
agree.
really powerful line, and I don't know exactly how what the licensing problems or the nuances are of it and the trucker industry, but you take it to the medical example. Sure, you might have a scam doctor who can be prosecuted by fraud,
Yes.
by for fraud, by the way. Um, but like you're weighing this against the entire destruction of the healthcare system, cost being 5 times more, people completely opting out of even seeking treatments for doctors because it's so
Yeah.
one way or the other, and like untold suffering. So like, yeah, there's other sides to this equation.
Yeah. It's really remarkable how much of our freedom we've given up in the name of nominal safety that we don't even get the safety. Like again, like
Ben
we drive a
Franklin, something,
yeah,
something.
yeah. Insert Ben Franklin quote here. But it's absolutely bonkers. And like governments are only really competent at warfare, and they're barely competent at that.
Mhm.
And warfare is like 8% of federal spending, of U.S. government spending. The vast majority of spending across all levels of government is welfare, very like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, transfer payments, right? That's almost all spending.
Mhm.
It's almost 50%, and because
Mhm.
you can buy
Mhm.
votes with that, right? It's you can buy votes with defense spending too, but it's harder, right? Because
Mhm.
people who are soldiers actually do tend to really care about not being dead, so they do want you to spend stuff
Mhm.
on stuff that sort of works. But most government spending, you face an almost impossible question. You have to, like, if you're running for office, right, and you're saying, "Oh, I'm not gonna, promise contracts to my friends," you're running against someone who is, right, and they're in a neutral setting. They're gonna win most of the time because, of course, people want free stuff, right? So, being the more noble party and not spending tons of money, which is the good thing to do, by the way, and not like saying, I'm going to give fat
Mhm.
contracts to my buddies in the NGOs. Like, look at California, right?
Mhm.
California is basically a system which they've out, there are a bunch of rules and legal rulings that you can't do certain things with a government agency. And the way of getting around that was to outsource it to an NGO, right? Which can do a lot of those things. So they take problems and they just say, okay, this is a great excuse to
Mhm.
transfer the payments. So the thing I actually, we were talking about this before, I think, about USAID, right? I sent this out to Elon,
Mhm.
and he actually retweeted. I was very proud of myself. So
Yes.
you of the what percentage of U.S. spending to Haiti do you think went to Haiti, and what percentage do you think went to the Beltway,
To the Beltway,
the D.C.,
would you
Maryland,
say?
or Virginia? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I was just making sure that's what you said. Right. I would say, let's say 10% to Haiti, 90% to the Beltway.
2% to to Haiti. 2.
No way.
Yes.
I can't believe you still caught me with that trap, even with me
2%.
picking an extreme guess.
Yeah, 2%. I can send you, and this is a
That's funny.
well-known problem. Like, people have been writing about this for years. So, because
Yeah.
the perspective of a government bureaucrat, the best thing you can do is say, "Oh, you can't criticize my spending, or you're criticizing those people who are actually suffering." And Haiti is actually suffering. Like, there's real suffering. But my opinion would be, well, that's a really good reason not to be using them as an excuse for your money laundering. But in political terms, like, that's an amazing excuse for money laundering. You can't criticize it, or you're like, you're evil, and you want people to
Right.
die. Like
Well, and they want that government in charge probably too, right? All the USAID money, it props up regimes. They're
Haiti
often
doesn't
leftist
really
regimes. They're
have a
often not.
government at this point. The most powerful
Yeah, that's
guy in
a fair
Haiti
point.
is basically a cannibal. It's really dark.
Haiti is more like the consequence of their last regime
Yeah,
they
it's
propped up,
really
I guess,
bad.
probably. Like
It's really
Somalia.
bad. And look, like,
I've seen the mud pies.
it's bad.
I'm not
Haiti is
surprised
really
at all they're eating cats. Like that makes way more sense to me than eating mud pies.
bad. And look, I'm not like, I don't know a ton about the politics of Haiti, but I do understand that throwing money at them was not actually giving them the money. It was an excuse for the people in DC to enrich themselves. And they'd also fly down there.
PETA slaughters 300,000 animals a year. We could be sending those to Haiti for food. Like,
okay, I got
that would
start
be way more than the money.
I got to start this. So my first job, right? I never thought this would be politically valid. My first job, I worked in an aquarium, right, in Virginia Beach, which is about 10-minute drive from PETA World Headquarters, right? So we saw PETA all the time, like constantly. They would come in and complain about fish stuff. And it's kind of funny because now everyone's mad about the reflecting pool, where I was vacuuming algae out of a tank, like way before it was cool, like 2010. But it was
we got shrimp to do that for ours.
Yeah. It's not a fun job. But my point being that, like, the PETA people, like, they at least do care about something, right? They have an actual opinion, whereas bureaucrats are genuinely just doing it to enrich themselves and feel powerful. They kind of want that, like, I'm in charge, right? And I'm in the belly of the beast here. I talk to people all the time, and they genuinely enjoy the feeling of, like, power that they get, because if you're like some middle management, bureaucrat, you can go to, like, Tanzania and you can meet with the president really quite easily because you're offering immense amounts of money. You can go and you can feel like a really big shot, and that's a very like desirable thing to them. They want that, right? But
if you go to business conferences, the FDA people or the agency people, they're always like special guests, special this. And I saw this all over Asia too, with, like, there's always like these Cambodian diplomats showing up and Malaysian diplomats at the different events, and it was even more extreme dynamic there, where people were like really catering to them and apologetic, and not even apologetic like about an issue, just like not treating them like they have power over them, which they do. And these guys were they were like the laziest, the dumbest, like
they're
the
awful.
people who knew the least in the entire room. And it was just like you pander them through.
And the worst thing is, like,
they can't even speak. Yeah.
If you're a business, you have to work with these people, like, because the alternative is you get destroyed if they don't like you, right? So I write a lot about National Review about nuclear stuff and nuclear regulations, right? And the reality is that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is probably the least efficient part of the U.S. government, which is saying something. So they have because they have this ridiculous rule where if you have, and the incentives are so obvious, the staff time of a Nuclear Regulatory Commission employee has to be paid for by the company they're regulating, right? And it's over $400 an hour. So naturally, and that's where their budget comes from. So naturally, they inflate the staff time. Stunning, right? Like, gosh, if you're getting $400 an hour, yeah, you're going to work a whole lot, right? And so these people, they generate absolutely nothing. They block everything, and they increase the price of everything to absurd levels. And now we don't have nuclear power, because whenever they see a new industry, they see it and they go, oh, here's how I can justify my regulatory authority. Here's how I can go and justify hiring more people. Because in DC, money is not actually the measure of your power. How many people you have working for you is. And they actually brag about this, right? So if you go in DC and you go to like the DC cocktail parties, they will literally say, I have 50 people working for me. No, I have 60. And it's like a bragging contest, right? And most of these people serve absolutely no function. Most of them, so a lot of government contracting is done on what's called a cost plus basis, right? And what that means is if you're building something complicated, right? You have the contractor, they get paid a percentage of the final cost, right? So if the contractor gets paid $10 million, they get 3%. But if they go over budget to $20 million, they get 3% of $20 million. So the incentive is to increase your cost, right? This is beyond obvious. And that's why everything the government makes is insanely expensive, because the contractors have a huge incentive to increase their own cost. Whereas if we actually, I've talked about this for a long time, this is not my idea, by the way, but if you want to like go to Mars, for example, or whatever the plan is, just say, okay, the US government puts a $20 billion bounty on whoever goes to Mars. No questions asked. And that system will encourage people to not spend money as opposed to just endlessly spending money. Because all money really is a unit of value and a unit of attention, and like how much effort you want to put into something, right? Like that's what it is. And when you allow government bureaucrats to basically just say, okay, we're going to do it this way, and you give them an unlimited printing press, they're going to find a way to spend the money to buy political support. Because of course they will, you know? You can never have enough.
Right. They're more likely to spend it on buying political support than the actual task. And so that's how this relates to these patronage networks, right? That's like, what are the Democrats really good at? They're good at giving their permanent activists like long time paying jobs, right? And then that creates a literal army of super loyal soldiers who are also in, the DC ecosystem.
Yes.
And the right has very little equivalent to that.
Yes. I am like
corporations won't pay you.
They won't.
Go ahead.
Left wing. So I love Elon. I love most right wing rich people, but left wing billionaires. So like, look at Jeff Bezos, right? Jeff Bezos is sort of right wing, right? He doesn't donate anything to any right wing group. He puts all the money back into his business because that's what he's interested in. Whereas Mackenzie Bezos, his ex-wife, who took, I think it was 25% of his money, right? She donates tons of money to left wing groups, like mountains of money. So like, and I think part of that's because right-wing people tend to be very fiscally conservative and they want to spend money on, they think I can build this better myself. But you have these large standing activist armies on the left who are fighting people who are basically working on donations on the right. And like, just because they're interested. And quite frankly, it's amazing the right wins as much as it does, given that you have, this massive amount of like people with useless college degrees who can't really do anything but be an activist. Like if you're a sociology degree from a good university, like you don't really have any job that doesn't involve in some way taking a government grant, right? And do you know Eisenhower, Ike Eisenhower, the former president, right? In his farewell address, he famously warned about the military-industrial complex, and people talk about that endlessly. In the exact same speech, he warns about the scientific technological elite being more dangerous than the military-industrial complex, and says flat out, these people are going to take over everything because because government grants are destroying academia. He was freaking right, and he also said that on the way out the door. and he was the
Right.
supreme
It
Allied
probably wasn't
commander.
even that as sensitive. It probably wasn't
Yeah,
as sensitive at the time because it
yeah,
hadn't quite fully happened yet,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
like he it was just a warning or like a philosophical point about the
yeah.
direction things may go, but
And
not an actual
that happened.
threat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
that
when
happened.
I was doing I did some journalism on this with the National Science Foundation board, which ended up resulting in Trump sacking a lot of them. I was very proud of myself. And
Thanks
the
for it.
level of like flat out left wing like activists who were in charge of this thing was astounding. Like you had people who were open, like their area of study was genocide studies. Like, come
Mhm.
on.
And so you're
Yeah,
getting rid of left-wing activists. Like
yes,
this is a big white pill, right? For like
yes,
how the administration is responsive and how you're wielding your political
yes.
power more effectively than someone on Twitter yelling about Israel.
Yes,
Like you actually got
yelling
leftist
about
fire.
Israel is a massive waste of time. The thing that lefties are really good at, if you want to do something evil, put it behind something boring, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they are so good at like putting these incredibly dull, incredibly boring, like oh I'm a genocide scholar. Actual person is like we need to destroy America because something Native Americans. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like that's the person who was on the board, right? Another really good example, and this was the lady who was in charge of President Biden's Science Integrity Commission, right? So
Mm-hmm.
she was ironically massively exploiting the integrity of science to allow her
Mm-hmm.
brother-in-law to get published. So she was peer reviewing her brother-in-law. That's illegal. You can't do that in science, right? But she was doing it, and she was that was the lady who was nominally the cop, right? Who was
Mm-hmm.
cheating, and they do this all the time. And
It's like when the director of NYU
yeah,
bioethics goes to the WEF and advises that we or suggests that we create a tick that can make people allergic to
yeah,
meat so we can save the planet. Like this is the director of bioethics at one of
yeah,
our head universities. It's they give a boring label so that they
yeah.
can
And then
do a
they
plot that
hide
like
the incredibly
Sauron would never
evil
think of.
thing behind the boring label, right? Because who cares
Right.
about
I don't think
bioethics? That's
Sauron would
easy.
ever think Sauron would never think of that.
Yeah. Sauron.
Like,
There's actually a great quote, but I think it was by C.S. Lewis on Tolkien's thing, where he talks
mhm,
about how actually, if Gandalf had the ring, Gandalf would have been far worse because at least Sauron made the
right,
distinction between good and evil obvious, whereas Gandalf would have
right,
been
exactly.
like such he made good look bad because he was so good and so unable to tolerate
Parallel
any
to that
distinction.
is the C.S. Lewis quote, right? Like,
Yeah,
or no, is that a Tolkien quote? Actually, not a C. I forget if it's Tolkien or
I
C.S.
have to
Lewis,
look.
but it goes like the man who will tyrannize you for like
Yeah,
their
and that's
own
Lewis.
power or devices is going to leave you alone, but the man who's going to tyrannize you for your own good will never leave you alone.
Yeah,
And that's why we
and
basically live in a nursery rhyme.
yes, it's really quite bad because they most of the people who do this like they want to get paid. Don't get me wrong, but they also
Mhm.
genuinely think that you are unable to live your own life and that you need
It's
them to tell you what to do, and that's the
I have an
root of it.
example of this.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
You do
that is
you do
totally the route. You described it really well earlier with the incentives. But a great, perfect example is working in ag tech, specifically also in dairy industry. There's a lot of overlap with human health because all the animal health companies like Zoetis, they also have, human or Merck, they have big human health uh, divisions. And so like they overlap at the conferences. And the human health side was always talking about how jealous they were at the level of control we had over what the animals did and also over their data. Because they're like, my humans won't take the medicine, but you can just like feed the whatever. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, wait. That's because they're cows. Humans can make decisions. Like if
Yeah.
if cows could think, farms would look a lot different. Okay, we would harness their potential to think to like solve problems that didn't have to be automated into your system of central
Have
planning.
you
Like
have you ever read Jim Garrity's book, The Weed Agency?
the what agency?
The Weed Agency.
No.
It's you should read it. It's really quite something. It's a kind of slightly comedic take on the U.S. government's agency to regulate weeds, like the it's absolute, and it's very. I've seen that like so many times. It's amazing. Like they really do live in an alternate universe where people care about their opinions, right? And one of the best parts of being in the DC area is that you really do have people who are really deeply invested in things that nobody else cares about, right?
Mhm.
And that's like the interesting part of it. But the bad part is that they can end up in charge of things. And some random staffer who you've never heard of, who no one voted for, can somehow end up like just implementing that pet policy. And at this point, it's so bureaucratic that Congress doesn't really have the power to undo it, right? So, like if you ask me for one piece of legislation that I would think is the best, it's the REINS Act, which would the only change it would make was that any regulation that has I think over $10 million, which is nothing by government standards, impact, Congress would have to vote on it, right? And this would end the whole rulemaking process, because what happens right now in DC is if you're an ag tech, right? The FDA gets to has what's called a rulemaking time. And you write your little comments, and the only people who ever care are like the people in the agriculture industry and other bureaucrats and environmentalists, and they all write their little comments back and forth about like the proposed rule, and then the agency gets to decide what they think the law means, which is not how laws are supposed to work, right?
Right.
And their interpretation of what the law means. So the best example I can give is, so I do a lot of environmental stuff, right? And I'm like an anti-environmentalist because I think they're awful. But there's something called the Waters of the United States Act, right? And this said like, oh, any body of water, the EPA can regulate it to like ensure that fish are healthy, right? And they took that and said, that could mean puddles. And there are puddles everywhere, right? So they just went to the most maximalist interpretation because it gives them more power. Of course they want more power, right? Like
Groundwater.
The EPA has SWAT teams, man. There are EPA SWAT teams. And they do
Well, they
things.
needed them to kick all the ranchers off of their land. A lot of that was done around water.
They invaded a town in Alaska with a SWAT team and a tank. Like this happened. And
and the Clean Water Act, by the way, if you track the level of pollution in rivers, like even like, I mean, serious pollution, like the percent of rivers where you can still catch fish, which is a good indicator for like a clean river. That statistic had a consistent downward trend line that was not impacted whatsoever by the Clean Water Act. All the Clean Water Act did was transfer the management from states or private interests to the federal government. And so look, they controlled.
Let me give you a great example. And a lot of these times they're not even accomplishing what their goal was, right? So like look at the Endangered Species Act. Endangered Species Act, probably the most classic example of a horrible government policy. Like if the goal was to protect endangered species, we can have a conversation about that, right? I spend a lot of time camping. I'm in the outdoors all the time. Of course I like that, right? But what the incentive structure of the Endangered Species Act, if you own a bunch of land, right? If you own like 50 acres and you have an endangered species on your land, and that means that you don't, in a lot of senses, you don't own your land anymore. You can't sell it, right? What happens to the endangered species? Gosh, $10 million or a bird. I wonder what's going to happen. And this is called shoot, shovel, and shut up. So this happens a lot. And the end result.
So they kill the animals so that they don't so that they're able to sell their land.
Yes.
Yes.
And
that's
again, you can't really blame someone for that, right? Because I mean, look, if my family's from West Virginia, right?
Mhm.
And I've seen a lot of people. I'm aware of a lot of people who did that. Because
And it's
oh,
not
like,
like
look,
they're killing the last platypus, you know.
yeah. Well, and
It's still
oftentimes
not
it's
it's
an
not a good
endangered
incentive,
snail.
but
Yeah, it's they're not. These are
mhm,
often not like it's not bald eagles for the most part. It's like this endangered snail,
mhm,
and you get like the big one in the western part of the United States was called the sage grouse, right? And it's this dinky little
mhm,
bird, and if you have one of these on your land, you can't do anything, right? So people
right,
just kill them, and then the bureaucrats
mhm,
act all shocked by that they had to, even though
right.
there's huge incentives to do that, right?
It's so
So
obvious.
yeah, the 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 power of bureaucracy is to turn lawsuits into the appropriate response to everything, and to also encourage people to like do basically anything to avoid associating with the bureaucracy, because if they come for you, your life is hell. It's awful if
Right.
they come for you.
Yeah.
And even if you don't, even if you get away with it, right? Even if you aren't, like, just having them look into your stuff and having them investigate you is deeply unpleasant. The
Oh,
process is
yeah.
in many ways the punishment, right? And
Mhm,
look, I don't live in New Hampshire or anything where like, or I'm not a free state person, but like in many cases, you can get absolutely wrecked, and your life can be basically ruined just because they're suspicious. And in
right.
many cases, you didn't
That's
do
the
anything wrong.
origin of Tank Man,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah,
guy who put a
yeah,
bunch of sheet
yeah,
metal armor on top of his tractor and just, like, started bulldozing the police station
yeah.
or various
And it
buildings
can be
because
really
they can
bad.
just
And
totally
like,
ruin you with fines.
yeah, the average American is at a point where they're breaking several laws a day, and often unknowingly.
Mhm. Yes.
So,
Which creates this
and
situation where, like you said, it's like a gang, or it's like you can be because everyone's breaking laws, these
yeah,
people can go after you arbitrarily. So having them
yes,
sniff onto your trail is no different than like being attacked by a wild animal in the woods or being
yeah.
mugged. Like they're just a person who's like doing the Bane quote, "Do you think this gives you power over me? Like I have the power."
And
Yeah, and they use it.
they also just don't go after their own people. So, for example, AOC, the congresswoman, flagrantly broke
Mhm,
campaign finance law, like blatant, like 100. She was to greatly oversimplify. She and her former chief of staff, who also ran for Congress, were on the
mhm,
board of the super PAC that was paying them, right? And she was using that. She was basically embezzling money from her donors. This was very obvious. The FEC sent letter. The Federal
mhm,
Election Commission sent letters. It was it was the most obvious fraud I've seen in a while, and she ended up paying like a
mhm.
$250 fine. Just nothing, right?
And this is
Like
like campaign fraud that could get a Republican kicked out of office
if I
if they
did that,
wanted
I'd
to.
be in jail.
Right.
I would be in jail. Like, I know
Yeah.
it. And the chief of staff resigned, and she paid a token fee. And that was horrible, right? And this is when they first, the guy who exposed this, who I know a little bit, he pointed this out, and her response was, "You just want to date me," and she got away with it. Very sad. Um, like,
That's
so
a good description of our culture. It's like accurate.
yeah, but you have this very like you have a two-tiered system where one side is allowed to break the rules and the other side isn't. And what reason I'm a huge Trump supporter and a big Trump fan is because he's the first president to see that and go, I'm going to fundamentally alter the trajectory of America and change this. So he went after a lot of the money laundering scheme. Like, so right now,
Mhm,
right? The New York Times reported, and the New York Times, it's legit. The Democrats' fundraising apparatus is being sued by their own lawyers because their own lawyers were like, "Yeah, you're doing illegal stuff." And what they were doing was they were basically trying to get money from outside the United States to come into the United States and spend it on elections. They famously did this in 1996 with Chinese money. It's called Chinagate. And Al Gore stood up there
mhm,
saying there was no controlling interest. I was a kid when this was happening, obviously, but so they were moving large amounts of money from rich people abroad into the United States, And this is if the Republicans do well this cycle, it will be because the Democrats clearly broke laws and got like wrecked with by it. And that right now their fundraising platform, it's not offline, but all their best people are not doing it properly. And like, I mean, if you and I were like fighting a military campaign, right? And your orders were everyone should just do what they want, like you're going to be less effective, right? And the Democrats don't have like leadership right now. There's no one in charge because they're all busy like being, preparing for federal prosecution over the Act Blue stuff. And a lot of them, and they were definitely.
So is this why the Dems? Is this why the Dems have no funding? The Democratic Party has no funding and no funding for the congressional candidates, right? And that's a big story for why the GOP will do well, because like they're not putting money into any races, and they're also electing a lot of Democratic Socialist guys in primaries that will struggle in the generals. So like that's insane, right? Like
they were so used to cheating, they don't know how to play fair, right? They were
so they don't know. They're paralyzed because they don't know any other way to do it, and they're under investigation. So like while people online are saying that the Republicans are going to lose the midterms because Trump's controlled by Israel or whatever, in reality the Trump admin is actually like completely destroying the Democrats entire infrastructure. And
now the midterms are still a long way away.
Kind of a big deal.
Stuff could change, right?
Yeah.
But it's also, I would say that the Republicans have a good shot of even holding the House of Representatives. I'm not saying they're going to do it. I don't think. I mean, I said history is against us.
The Senate's a little more important.
Yeah.
The House is a little harder.
History is against us there, but like the fact that we even have a good shot of doing it is incredible, considering this is the second term. And normally the second term president gets absolutely obliterated in midterms. That's just the default. That should be your default. But the fact that they can't do that, and they like right now, the generic ballot, which is what nerds like me spend the most time looking at, I think it's either even or like D+3, right? So right now, Republicans are in a pretty good spot. Like it could change.
That's for the midterms blitz, so to speak.
And most notably,
and like just a few days after Iran ended.
Yeah. And most notably, Republicans haven't spent the money yet, right? The Trump and all the super PACs, they have this giant blob of money and they haven't spent it yet. So we're a little behind before we spend all the money, right? So obviously spending the money will help. And Democrats have no money. And even more importantly, let me put it this way. If you go to the store and you buy one roll of toilet paper, that's going to cost you a lot more in per unit terms than if you buy 12, right? Because the bulk discount, right? It's the exact same with ad spending. If you buy a whole lot of stuff up front, you can get much more stuff down the line. If you understand what I'm saying? It's just like, it's the principle of buying in bulk.
It's a compounding advantage, basically.
Yeah, it's a compounding advantage. And Dems don't have any money now. Now they'll probably get more money in the future as they get closer to the election and they try to find workarounds. But that's not as useful as money right now. And obviously, we could lose regardless. Like history is against us again. But like the Republicans have a much better shot.
It's awesome. Yeah. Right. And even if we lose, the key point is like the Dems' entire political operation has been disrupted. So you have that level, right, where you have the campaign funding corruption, and then you have the whole like NGO permanent staffer USA network, right, where like people are dropping like flies, and then you actually have the actual regulatory, like the actual regulators, the bureaucrats, who are also being fired in historic numbers, as they're using AI to like analyze every regulation, like you said, that costs over $10 million on the economy, or every regulation that violates the 10th Amendment. I personally designed a decision tree that was like 5-6 steps of yes or no for like, should you keep a regulation? Is it doing this? Could somebody else do that? What is the trade-off here? It's like a decision tree. If it passes all these steps steps you can keep the regulation. And the head, Doge guys who are now doing like the data,
They're the
um,
best.
they took over the data teams on all the agencies, right? And they're running my decision tree through an AI to like identify regulations at tags.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's like, thank you for this. This is a great internal logic structure for us to push through.
Yeah.
It's like, and you're blackpilling, and you're like, Doge
Yeah.
just fails.
People who are
And obviously,
blackpilling
we're still
don't
talking about
want
there's tons of problems, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking to Anon when I say you're blackpilling, not you. The
But
metaphorical
look,
Anon.
never black.
Yeah.
So Charlie Kirk would always text people when they would complain. He
Mhm.
would just say, "Never blackpill, man." Always. But he
Mhm.
constantly
Right.
texts people, and never, ever, ever blackpill, because you are never defeated until you give up. Right. The other side's
That's who we are.
the other side's goal is to get you to give up, right? And to make it look
Mhm.
too hard, and it's too difficult, and these problems have been 100 years in the making. We can't fix them. There's no way to do it.
Mhm.
Surrender. No, that's ridiculous. We're gonna win. We're gonna win, and we're gonna keep winning until we get tired of winning.
Yeah.
And
That's where that comes from.
yeah, and like there is the left has this tremendously complicated system, like infrastructure system of how to employ their own people and get them paid, and we don't have that. But the
Mhm.
fact that they have that makes them vulnerable, because they're entirely dependent on endless money, basically, and that can be cut off. And the fact that it was cut off, they have no idea what to do, right? And notably,
Fragile strategy.
it's a very fragile strategy. And what they've been trying to do is bring it down to the state level, right? Where they still do have control. So if you're California, right, you have enough monetary heft in California to basically like do whatever you want, more or less. There's a lot of money in California, and they even then it's still eating everything. The reason their spending on NGOs went up so much is because most of the federal NGOs are now California NGOs. If you look at the California's budget for NGOs, it blows up, and I think about 24. So they moved all the people.
That's their lifeboat.
Yeah,
California and that's when they paid out a bunch of money right before they got shut down.
And this is why the California budget is exploding and a disaster. Like they can't. And look, like the other side is there are smart people there. They know what they're doing, but they never have experienced this before. And a lot of these people, they've never experienced being actually repressed or actually oppressed in any way. And they're very weak people, right? Because they've never had any hardship. The average like Democratic Socialist America guy is, their mom and dad are paying for their apartment and they're 35. I'm 35. I have a bunch of kids. I own my house, right? None of them have ever,
despite the realtor's best attempt to stop you.
None of them have ever suffered. They've never had any issue. So when you push them at all, they collapse because they have no ability to like actually take a hit, right? They spent their entire lives being glass cannons and dishing out punches, but they have no capacity to take a hit, like none at all. So we are winning largely because the enemy is so pathetic. And like, look, when I went to college, I went to one of the most like left-wing colleges in America, right? And like people tried to cancel me before it was a thing. It was a whole disaster, right? But like it made me much stronger as a person, because of course I'm gonna some guy is trying to is writing my boss and getting me fired. That's a Tuesday for me, man. Like I can people complain to my boss every other day. It's like a running joke about me. And
we grew up hearing their arguments. They didn't know ours. We're used to taking pressure. They're not. It's also kind of like touches with the age of the last men point, right? Around how when society becomes so weak that like 100 people of fiber can cut through it. So that's like you just illustrated that principle in a very real way, like a very real relatable way. That's a very big way.
Another really good point, and this is the last thing I'll say for a bit. My college roommate was a very smart, very wonderful person, right?
Mm,
Also very rich. Um, so he ran to be mayor of Richmond, which is the capital of my state of Virginia, and he
mm,
spent an ungodly amount of money to come. And he's a very smart guy to come in like fourth, like 11% of the vote, because he was Jewish, right?
mm.
So Democrats very effectively purged a lot of their most effective people over the Gaza thing, right? So
Yeah,
they're all gone,
like
right?
donor networks.
Their best people who knew how to do a lot of this stuff got purged,
Hmm.
right? So they are
Mm.
operating on a much lower, much worse level. Now, look, he is a Democrat. He's a nice guy, though. And Richmond right now does not, recently, they did not have running water. Like there was Google Richmond water crisis. It was a serious thing. Like you couldn't drink the water, right?
And Richmond's not like somewhere in West Virginia,
Yeah,
it's one of the
this is like
richest
a major
DC
city.
areas.
This is a
Yeah.
major U.S. city. You can't drink the water.
It's called
Because
Richmond.
yeah, and like if he was in charge, you could drink the water. My roommate was. You could easily drink the water. He was a smart guy, but the level of effectiveness of the Dems has declined greatly because they've been prioritizing ideological zeal and loyalty over competence. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
things like, oh, who buys the media, who runs the data work, who runs the program for this or that. There's a lot of things in politics that are they're just technocratic competence tests, and they have handed those
Hmm.
jobs over to people who are very ideologically loyal but have no idea what they're doing. And like
Hmm.
maybe
Kind
they'll
of like the
learn in
people in
time.
Mondani's campaign
Yeah.
or something
Like
that have no professional experience or.
the fact that they think that is the model is amazing for us. Now, it might be bad for America, but it's good for Republicans.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah,
a
it makes
lot of
sense. It's a
those,
lot like the Libertarian Party, right? Where
yeah,
it's like it's more about saying the right thing
yeah,
than actually being
yes,
competent or effective.
yes, yes. And like, so look, I'm a Virginian. The Libertarian Party, I'm a Liberty Republican, right? The
Mhm.
Libertarian Party has cost Virginians several elections, right? Like most notably
And the
24.
Dems spun this, by the way, like you said, just to put context to that, they're putting millions of dollars all
Yes,
over
there.
into getting people on the ballot.
Yes, and they're very good at that. And they also ruthlessly purged the Green Party, right?
Hmm.
The Green Party in the last 2024 cycle was ruthlessly kept off the ballot. I think I had to look it up, but in a vast number of states for the most nonsensical reasons ever. One of them was that the Green vice president candidate allegedly that person had physically moved to a new address, right? And that they use that to discredit a lot of their signatures because clearly
Hmm.
people care about the address. Like no one in this country moves, right? So the Green Party was ruthlessly kept off the ballot in 24, and they are always ruthlessly kept off the ballot. And if you ever talk to one of them, they'll complain about it because they know exactly what's happening.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's a very complicated lawfare strategy against the Green Party that the GOP just doesn't
Hmm.
do to the Libertarians. Um, like, and one
Hmm.
of the great things that Trump did is he reached out to the Libertarian movement and said, like, "Hey, I'm going to be the most Libertarian president you're ever going to have," and I think
Hmm.
he is. So I was
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was
which is
born
more true than people realize.
I was born in 1990. Nobody else was even close to the most Libertarian president, right?
Hmm.
Um, so like H.W. Bush, definitely not Libertarian. Bill Clinton, definitely not Libertarian. Like Trump is the most you're ever
Hmm.
going to get.
Yes.
Um,
The thing about Trump being a 90s Democrat is like there's some superficial overlap to that, like in terms of, Democrats in the 90s weren't woke or whatever, but
yeah,
he's actually incredibly different than Bill Clinton. Like
yes,
Bill Clinton didn't, reduce the size of the federal workforce to 1960
yeah.
or cut like 151 regulations to one, et cetera.
And look, I live in the Beltway area. I'm going to personally take
Mhm.
a hit because so many people have been doged here, and they complain about it
Mhm.
aggressively. They
Right.
don't know I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
But like I am willing to take that hit for America. You know, I have
Yeah.
a lot of people I know around me who got doged, and it's a huge like. Look, it's not good for that person, but it's good for
Hmm.
America, right?
Yeah. And we
And
like to talk about major special interests too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But there's like individual special interest and selfishness, just like we talked about with these bureaucrats who are getting paid, the NGO people who are like, the professional army, or even the doctor who's benefiting from the licensing regime. And you go back to the guilds and the Netherlands or wherever, right? Where it was the same thing. You needed to pay these guys money and go through their 6-year program, and then you were allowed in the game. Even if someone else
yes,
could do it better than you, even if that wasn't the best way to learn, even if the way you were making the product itself isn't optimal, because instead of making an assembly line, you have every little aspect of the construction is separated into various guilds, and it's made
yeah,
separately. Like, so it's people think of this as just like these institutions as something that are just like part of the waters, part of the natural, like taxes and death, right? And regulations. It's like, no, actually, these regulatory regimes are a very unique way of centrally planning society.
yeah,
And the Dutch exports and their quality and everything else did not collapse after they got rid of the guilds. It was in fact the
yeah,
opposite. So,
yeah.
um,
Well, you can make
yeah.
so much more when no one's breathing down your throat saying you have to do it this way, right? Um,
Hmm.
and
Well,
again, it's like
that's why construction's so boring, right? Which they blame
yeah,
on capitalism. Oh, everything looks the same. It's like, well, yeah, because the building codes are that pretty much every regulator abides by down to the local level are written by an international NGO.
yeah.
So, yeah, everything looks the same.
And
Yeah, every
again,
single bathroom has the same railing and the
yeah.
handicap stall. Like,
So much of it is it's all due to like how we how you make bureaucrats feel good about themselves, right? So Trump is absolutely loathed by America's bureaucrats, like in a level that is they
mhm,
basically think of him as like this deeply embarrassing person. That's to like steel man their view.
mhm,
They're like, oh, he's just evil. I don't understand the appeal. And a lot of these people were like, oh, at least I get the appeal of Mitt Romney, even though at the time they were calling him a Nazi. Um,
mhm.
and and like I'm not a huge fan of Mitt Romney, but the guy wasn't a socialist. Um,
Yeah, that
but
is funny, but that was an
yeah,
insult for him.
it was hilarious. And whoever the next Republican nominee is, they'll call that person worse than Trump, right? It's what they want. The left is they see politics as entertainment, right? And they like to like just oppress someone because it's fun, right? Cancel
Mm,
culture doesn't work to actually purge someone. It works to be entertaining, right? And to watch
mhm.
the person like struggle. It's like in the old days they used to like watch hangings. It's kind of the same thing, you know. Like that
They
was
would
considered to
watch
be a
what?
hangings, like
Hanks.
hanging, HANGING.
Oh, hanging. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, got it.
like that
Oh,
was
fascinating. Cancellations like hangings for the
yeah,
entertainment factor.
yeah. The entertainment factor is the whole thing. And people, they're on Blue Sky or Facebook. Facebook is the big place for them these days, or whatever. And they're like, oh, this guy is the most evil person ever. Let's get him fired. Uh, and
Mhm,
that's fun, right? They're not actually creating like a centralized list of people who are being disemployed. They're not doing it for tactical reasons. They're doing it because
right.
it's fun to them. So the way to beat that is to make them stop having fun, right? And
Mm,
if you make them stop having fun, they will, I don't say go away, but they'll be a lot less
mm,
engaged. So, in my opinion, and I've said this many times, I call this my cat lady's thesis of politics, right?
mhm,
You have women who are generally not married, who, or, don't have kids, and they kind of externalize their altruism onto other like perceived victim groups, right? So and that effect is very powerful because it allows them to like build a coalition around whoever the perceived victim is, right? So in like when I
mhm,
got started in 2014, the perceived victim was like the climate refugees, and then it became like the George Floyd thing, and then it became gay people, and then it became trans people. It changes all the time, right?
In
But
Palestine.
yeah, now it's Palestine, I'd say, and it will change again, right? It'll change again.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what the next one will be, but it will change again. And so the future of
Which is
politics,
why I laugh about people saying that Israel will be the biggest issue in politics in 10 years when the
no,
Zoomers get older.
it
It's
won't
like,
be the biggest
well,
issue in two
that's
years.
10 news cycles later.
It won't be the biggest issue in 2 years.
Yeah.
Look, it's like the 20th most important thing going on right now, in my opinion.
Right now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and what will keep happening is they'll find you in order to they have to keep changing it to keep being entertaining, right?
Mhm.
And they'll find something else. But so the future of politics is that cat lady coalition versus like the gamer bro coalition, right? And I'd
Mm.
say Elon was the first person to actually really tap the gamer bro coalition. So it's basically gonna be boys versus girls, for a long time. And
Fitting for the century. Yeah.
I don't know how long for, but at least the
And the
next couple.
global situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to get to like South Korea levels,
Mm.
but it will keep going in that direction. And you'll have basically single guys versus single women, is the dominant, like, whose side are you on thing.
Well, it's fortunately it's self-correcting mechanism, right? Because if the more the guys win, the more they turn themselves into people that the women are attracted to and will listen to.
Yes, yes,
So
yeah,
fortunately there's like a virtuous cycle element
there
baked
is.
in.
And look, I'm a married guy. You're a married guy. Like,
Mhm.
I don't I care about this for altruistic reasons. I don't want to
Mhm.
live in a country where everyone else is unhappy. I don't care about it for personal reasons.
Yeah.
But it's really quite important that we, that you offer those people a way out. And I think the way to do that is to make them stop having fun in politics, because then they'll drop it. Like the left right now is basically driven
Mhm.
by the like 30 something overeducated woman and the 50, 60 something boomer, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
obviously, as we go on, the boomers are going to be less influential just because of math.
There's a
But
specific segment of boomers that's like 55 to 60 that are
yes,
hard blue, and then like 60 to 65 is like +5 red. So there's
yeah,
different boomers, right? I
yes,
describe it
there
as
are.
like wrestling it away from the Woodstock generation
Yes,
before we hand it off to the Zoom millennials who are not ready.
yes. The sad reality is that the boomers will get their luxury space communism, paid for by
Hmm.
you and me. The
Hmm.
reforming Social Security is probably not possible at this point, as much
Right.
as I think we should.
Hmm.
It's too toxic, right?
Yes. That's why we
Um,
need to redefine the landscape. Like, because
yes,
taxes, right? Say taxes take 50% of your money, but regulations add like
yeah,
102%, 200% cost on your
yep,
business, and they create year-long delays. So
yeah,
you can make you can like, we can make the economy so much bigger that Social
yes,
Security is like a much smaller part of it,
yeah.
and makes them like irrelevant and easy to pay because we're so wealthy and so successful.
Look, if you got
And
to
then
like,
obviously that gets rid of the dependency that makes you able to transition in eventually in the first place, which is like which is
yeah,
what I spoke to Trump about, right? Which I was like spending disaster. He's like, yeah, it's like Social Security is the size of the fifth biggest government budget in the world, you know?
yeah,
And then we're like, but the insane opportunity gap you could create on the regulatory side,
yeah.
and you could
It's
easily
much
get
easier
5%
because
growth. And
because
that
most
changes the
regulators,
whole equation, gives men a chance to like find meaning outside
yes,
of these corporations or like soulless bureaucracy or whatever, any path that has no meaning. Um, Now we have meaning. Now we can do stuff. Now we can have opportunity to work flexibly, start businesses, family businesses, uh, and then you get women.
yeah. And again, like, you can fix the regulatory side so much easier than you can fix the
Hmm.
Social Security side or the spending side, because every dollar the federal government spends, someone benefits from it directly, right? So
Hmm.
I'll take the classic example: sugar subsidies. Why do we subsidize sugar in the United? There's no reason. But I have spoken personally to many a sugar lobbyist, And every single time they will say, "Did you know that sugar was the first thing rationed in World War II?" It's like their talking point, right? They always go to that.
Of why we need to subsidize it.
Yes. And like that's not an answer, but like
Right.
and there is a very small number of people who grow sugar, and that's their job in the United States, and they all get a ridiculous amount of money. So they all lobby to keep their benefit because of course they do. It's their job.
Mm-hmm.
And spread across the price of the average American's food bill, it's not that much money. So this stupid policy continues. It's the problem of concentrated benefits and dispersed cost. But the good news about that is that one, it's like it's really hard to ever cut spending, and like I want to cut spending, obviously, but it's hard. But it's really comparatively easy to cut regulation. And
yes, exactly.
Like for example, here's a really good thing. So, childcare, right? I mean, you have a kid. Right now, in most states, it is illegal for a childcare worker to peel a banana. It's illegal. It's all in DC. It is illegal, but in the Columbia, it is illegal for childcare employees to not have a college degree. You need to have a college degree to change diapers. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Wow. And the actual answer is to subsidize demand for college degrees, right? And we've been doing so much. We being the United States, the United States has spent so much time and effort trying to like subsidize demand for college degrees because that's the power of the Democrats, right? The core of the Democratic Party is overeducated college degree holders, right? And they desperately want there to be more demand for that. But
do people think this is helping them? Like, like regular people, the fact that a nanny or whatever in some states can't open a banana. Like, does anybody agree with that? Like, that should be an easy PR victory, right? But why can't we? Why are we ruled by these people?
Yeah. Like this, a lot of these things are so insane that everyone like just laughs at it. Like, that's the rule, really? We should change that. And yeah, that's the rule, really. Like it's completely stupid. But
and that's not a joke either. That relates right into education and childcare, and like you can't pay a teacher, right, if they're teaching something outside of the regulated curriculum.
Yes.
So they have to do it for free. So then you can't have a business.
Whereas most people like. And again, most people get this, and most people don't know how bad it is, right? Until they encounter it firsthand, and then they kind of think, "Oh, that's really dumb," or "Oh, just work around it," right? But the cost of regulation, I would say, they're more than the cost of taxation, right?
Oh, exactly. Thank you. It's hard to communicate that point to people, but it's easily true because without regulation, our entire economy would be. Like if we just had less regulation, like if we were growing at 4% instead of 2% since 1960, everything's our Social Security budget now doesn't even matter. It's like a different equation.
Yeah, it's a rounding error. And like, look, if you can, and of course, it's in the nature of government bureaucracy to expand. That's what they do. It's a law factory, right? They spend their entire days either on their sports betting site, which is hilariously widespread in DC, by the way. And I like it when they do nothing, by the way. Or they go like, "Oh, let me try to find the way to like get at this person," right? And a lot of it's very hostile and very like, I'm gonna. And it also favors it disfavors small business, right? And it favors large institutions. So if you're a big corporation, right? If you're like, let's just say ExxonMobil. Nothing against them, but just pick them, right? You have legal teams and regulatory, like you have an immense regulatory compliance office, right? And if you're a business that's 1/10 the size, you don't need 1/10 the lawyers. You need about half the lawyers. So of course it favors big, right? When you create more rules, it naturally favors big. So they want to write those rules, right? And like a lot of companies, they basically just exist because they have like a little what's effectively a regulatory carve out for them. And they also it prevents new businesses from arising because the upfront cost becomes so insane, right? Like
Mhm.
the reason we have so much innovation in tech is because no one was regulating tech 20 years ago, right?
Exactly.
It wasn't perceived to be as like a big thing, right? And they
Mhm.
kind of just missed it. And as a result, you had explosive growth
It's
in
the
that
same
industry.
as cosmetic surgery versus regular hospital surgeries, right? Getting
Yeah.
back, that's a really fun example too, because it's a direct corollary. You're using tools to cut into people and do complicated
Yeah.
procedures. So same machine, same anesthesia,
Yeah.
same,
But
even
we
more
can,
expertise. That they have to be artists in that
yeah.
industry instead
Yeah.
of,
Again, my point is that we can fix this, and cutting the regulation is not as hard as people make it out to be, because a lot of it's
yeah.
insane. And you also, but the fundamental change we need is to go from a system which is right now we have a system where you have to basically Congress can only overrule a regulation if all of Congress
Mhm.
votes on it, which is very rarely gonna happen, right? we can we can very plausibly switch that to a system where Congress has to vote for new regulations, right?
Mhm.
And agencies can't just like continually churn out new rules that change every 5 minutes and make everybody change. Um,
But the
and
only advantage to that is that those are the rules that are easier to get rid of, right? Because
yeah,
80%, like you said, of the actual regulations were adjudicated by unaccountable bureaucrats and written as like vague interpretations with of statutes or written like completely separate from a congressional statute.
yes,
And so then I'm like, oh no, if you encourage Congress to legislate stuff, then it'll be impossible to get rid of. Because it's like just as impossible as it is to get Congress to do it, it's even more impossible to get them to reverse it. So
yes,
it's like
Congress never
stacking
does
up. I'm
anything.
like,
The
and the
founders
reason why they
designed
shifted it to the
Congress.
bureaucracy is because you can't make regulations for how a business operates with a body of five, three, a
Yeah.
bunch of retards
As I always
who don't
say,
know anything.
Congress is literally the opposite of progress, and that's a good thing.
But
Um,
Congress is the opposite of progress, and that's a good thing, right?
yeah,
Because yeah,
because I mean,
yeah,
again,
because they can't do it. They can't mathematically do it.
yeah,
So if you
if
make them do it, then we'll be
yeah,
safer.
if you make them do it, then it won't happen, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's the best way to get to the kind of benign neglect, laissez-faire that actually grows the economy is by making Congress have to do something because they don't.
And so I
Um,
know why normal people don't realize the tremendous size of the opportunity gap here, even though a lot of them do, right? Red tape is unpopular. It's
yeah,
actually a bigger political issue than Palestine in terms of how people rank it. And not just the economy, which is obviously higher, but like specifically bureaucracy or regulations. It's like still a top five, top 10 concern. You hear Ezra Klein and Jon Stewart are trying to like react defensively to Trump's narratives. They're like, oh no, the Republicans are outflanking us on this. They know that our bullshit is like making their lives impossible and very costly. We need to fight back. But then the libertarians never threw that punch that like
yes.
Trump set us up for. So why don't libertarians talk about regulations? Because I understand why normal people don't understand their economic impact is bigger than taxes, like we said. But shouldn't libertarians understand that?
Well, let me put it this way: I like libertarians. I know many of them.
Mhm. Yeah,
I am a liberty Republican.
yeah.
Liber- Dealing with libertarians are a bit like herding cats, in
Mhm.
that if you don't get exactly what you want 100% of the way, they bail on you.
Yeah.
And in politics, the way to win in the long run is to just to keep stand the shield wall, walk forward, and then wait for the others. It's like football, right? The like
Mhm.
if you're playing football and your offensive lineman just goes, I'm done, I'm walking out, we're not winning enough. Well, that makes it really hard to win now, doesn't it? Right?
Mhm.
Um, and most things in politics are about waiting for the right opportunity and then going super hard, like in football. So
Mhm.
you only win when either the other side is disordered or when you can just grind them down, right? And I think that a lot of libertarians don't have the patience for it, and they want
Mhm.
to like win right now, right? And they want to say,
Yeah.
okay, we need to abolish all occupational licensing. That's not how you win. If you want a really good example of how this works, look at the gun rights
Mhm.
movement, right? which, I'm a gun owner. Stunning, I know. I shoot. I do a lot of. I know, big deal, right? I live in Virginia, so they're coming for us really hard. But if you look at the gun rights position, like, in when I was born versus today, we are in such a better position. It's not even funny, right?
Right. Back then, it was like, are you harboring guns under your floorboards?
Yes, it was like that. And they went from, what was it, May issue to shell issue, right? And they did this incrementally, step by step, very slowly. And it took a long time, and it took a lot of work, and took a lot of showing up to meetings and not just ranting about on Twitter. I'm like, I love Twitter. I am on Twitter all the time. But that is not how you actually move the football down the field.
You're supposed to be on Twitter at the congressional session while you're waiting for the speech.
And if you just go and show up to like your city council meeting, you will see such stupidity and obvious corruption that like it's hysterical, right?
That's another great example of like whatever Trump is doing at the federal office, and maybe you don't think it's enough, but he's giving you tremendous opportunity to differentiate on a state level on educations or regulations. Anything you do as a state governor will not be legally challenged, will not be shut down in the Supreme Court. You can basically almost totally separate yourself from the federal regulatory system in like 80% of cases, and they're not doing it.
Yeah. And it matters at the state level. So you have so much more ability to impact people at the state level, because like put it this way. If you just go to a city council meeting and you just harass them, you can make that person take you seriously, right? Even if you're some random guy, you can make that person take your concern seriously, and you can get it changed. It's not that hard. I've done it once.
Why are we letting these people rule our lives? These people who have no power, these people that will like fold if you confront them, these people that are just like ruling you by virtue of being literally the only person showing up. Like, why are we letting this happen?
Like, do you have an HOA where you live? Homeowner association?
Yeah.
The kind of person who is on a city council is the exact person who's on an HOA, but worse. Right?
Aaron.
They are the most unpleasant, aggressive people you could ever imagine, but they're also very passive aggressive. And if you stand up to them in their face, they'll back down almost every time. And no, I call it committee brain, because no individual is as stupid as a committee, right? Because the committee will kind of think like consensus and the compromise, and it's always very dumb. But you can get involved and do so much stuff and get so much stuff done. Like a good friend of mine, right? And just a guy, he decided that his life's work was going to be getting so the national. You've been to DC, the National Mall, or National Park?
I don't remember. Probably.
So national parks have they had a what's it called? Food distribution. Like they had restaurants, and the restaurants lost money, right? Which is amazing. Now, my state of Virginia manages to lose money selling hard alcohol on an alcohol monopoly, which is astounding. Like the margins on alcohol are insane, but his big mission in life was he just decided that he was going to go and try to get actual restaurants like McDonald's into the national parks, right? And
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and it was massively successful. Trump signed the bill, right? And like that doesn't sound like a big deal, but that's actually like millions of dollars. And people get better service, they get better quality, and everyone won. The taxpayers won. It was great. And like, there's a lot of opportunities like that are just sitting around.
And they're dispersed, so it's hard to talk about, right? Because there's like a million industries and a million regulations, so you can't just reduce it to a single issue narrative. But a good example of that is because I'm also working with the Maha people to advise the Trump admin on better policy, and I try and give them pointers. It was like, okay, this is a policy that will accomplish the goals of your people and what they want, while also being possible to pass, and also more impactful than what you're talking about. Because they're like, one thing they're obsessed with is getting $1 billion subsidy for regenerative farming, right? Handed out through a government program. And I'm like, well, okay, but if you change the input storage regulations that cost farmers, 20% of their margin, then you're putting a lot more money into the farmers, which they're going to be able to use to invest in better solutions, which are more sustainable because they're more efficient. And a good example of one rule is Trump got rid of the sensor regulation on tractors for when they're being manufactured, and that saves farmers $14 billion a year. That's just one rule. Like 14 billion is a lot bigger than 1 billion in subsidies.
Okay.
So you
One
got to
thing,
look at like the indirect.
and this is a professional thing. Never use the word billion. Okay. Always conflate government spending with the price in aircraft carriers, which is about 10 billion. Right? People cannot conceptualize the number a billion. It's too big. Right?
Really?
So, like, I mean, no one has very few people have $1 billion. Right?
Sure. So what do you say instead?
I say if it's over 10 billion, I say that's one aircraft carrier, right?
Oh, okay.
Because they can conceptualize what that means, and we only have 11 aircraft carriers, so that's not that many, right? So if you say, oh, Social Security is that's 700 aircraft carriers a year, right? Or whatever the number is. But you can say you can very easily say, okay, that's a lot of this, that's a lot of that. And
I take it you're a fan of the imperial system.
Yeah, I speak metric, but barely. But
the imperial system is it's good because it's actually something in units that we can conceptualize.
Yes.
That's actually the functional point of it.
Yes, but and what always happens with people advocates of freedom always say, oh, it's costing this much. If the number is over 1 million, the average person has no conception of what that means. But if it's $14 billion for a year, that's saying, oh, you're stealing an aircraft carrier from our farmers, an aircraft carrier with a value.
That's a great point. Do you have any other examples in aircraft carriers that you roll out typically?
Yeah, so you can if it's over that, you compare it to the cost of the U.S. Army, which is about 170 billion. So if you say, oh, that's twice the budget of the U.S. Army, which people will understand is a lot of money. Because look, like everyone, even like the most libertarians, like, yeah, we probably should have an army. And Social Security is like 5 or 6 armies a year, which is a lot of money, right? If you're going down, I would generally go with changes to the White House, which are generally pretty cheap. Right. So the reflecting pool was 14 million. Yeah. So you say, oh, that's this many times the reflecting pool. And people like to talk about it for some reason. I think it's the most boomer thing ever to get upset about that. He trying
to fix a monument.
I've been to the White House. I've never been to the East Wing because no one has. Right. It's completely irrelevant. Right. No one goes there.
No, but it was in the show West Wing. Oh no.
No, it was the West Wing. Whoops. Funny story. When I was in Congress, right, whenever we were really mad at the Dems, we would have an MP3 of the West Wing intro music, and we'd hit the button whenever they were bloviating. And
no way.
We do this. It was they got really mad.
That's hilarious.
So it was fun. It was fun. You got like good tactic. This is not my opinion. Like good tactics are things that your people enjoy, right? I think it was Alinsky who said that, and he was a massive lib, but he was not dumb. And you gotta develop a system where your people are having fun and their people are miserable.
Right. Yes, right? Having fun is really important. And
having fun,
we can be kind of dour, serious.
It's how you. And everyone is always like going, oh, it's the end of the world. We're blackpilling. No, never about it. I love my job. Like I get to show up to work and I get to do this every day. It's awesome. I'm here on a Friday hanging out with you. It's awesome. Like I love talking about this stuff. And if I'm having fun right now. And if you're having fun, you're gonna keep doing it. You're gonna work harder, right?
You're having fun if you're interested, etc. It's hard to get, like, having fun is great, but like a lot of the frame is either doom. It's like Denethor after looking into the ball,
Yeah.
or it's like Aragorn giving a speech before the Black Gates. Like those are our two modes.
Yeah.
And I try and counter that by doing like, Aragorn giving the speech. I was going to give the analogy of like Mel Gibson from The Patriot. Like, oh, things aren't going perfect, so the soldiers are retreating. How do we get a Mel Gibson to like push the flag back and show us that we actually are making huge momentum against the Democrats, and we were actually about to like rout their infrastructure, and we should keep running, even though it didn't go how you imagine or as easily as you imagine.
And look, the honest thing is that most people in the media space, most people who follow politics are following it for entertainment reasons. And you've been betrayed by the Republicans is a very easy narrative. And it's something that a lot of people who are in the space, like they came up on that narrative, right? And because it was true.
Reflexive too.
Yeah, it's reflexive. Like in 2004, that was a very legitimate thing to think.
Yeah, like the Uni Party, right? That used to be a legitimate thing. But like I said, there's a difference between Joel Lonsdale, who's an elite, right? Because he's co-founder of Palantir. You can't argue he's not an elite. And he's making very convincing cases for completely eliminating building permitting, which after this discussion, people should understand the value of, right? And on the other side, you have the guy we talked about from NYU, who's the director of bioethics, speaking at the WEF, about giving us all meat allergies with ticks. Like those are different. Those are the different elites. Those are different philosophies. Yeah. Global technocratic cartel versus like, independent nations racing for the stars. Like this is pretty much as big of a difference that you can get. So Uni Party is a little bit outdated in that context.
Yes.
To put it mildly.
It was valid in like 2004. It's not.
Totally.
But the people who were popular in 2004, who are the main speakers, they still are around, right? And they naturally see the world in those exact same ways. But like the great thing about politics is that the barriers to entry are so low, unbelievably low. You can just show up and start doing stuff, right? And any political person, if you just show up to your local party gathering and you just like go knock doors or do that kind of thing, it's not that hard. I really enjoy doing it. And it's not that hard. And you will get handed so much power so fast. It's amazing if you just show up and do what you said you'll do. Because most people don't. Like my first race I ever won was in 2010 against, she's now an MSNBC contributor, Crystal Ball, right?
Oh, yeah, I hate her.
Yeah, we crushed her. It was awesome. I had a blast. I was running around like doing this, and it was a blast. And we it was 2010, so it wasn't very hard because it was a great year. But like I wasn't running their campaign, but I was doing a whole lot of stuff, right? I was some guy in college who just showed up and did it, right? And it was actually very fun. And now every single time I see her on Twitter, I'm like, "Hi, I remember I beat you."
Right.
And like it's great. So like the barriers to entry to this stuff, and again, if someone is watching this, if you want to do this, just message me on Twitter. My DMs are open. I'll help you. I love talking about this stuff.
I'll put your bio link in the video.
Okay, please do. Yeah. But it's so easy. It's so fun. You get to do so many interesting things. You get to like go to the White House. You get to do. It's a great life being in politics. And like, the other side will try to cancel you, but they're not very good at it. Like you can,
especially when like the people that were trying to they were trying to cancel now work in the Trump admin. You can't cancel the president, right? That's the ultimate Trump card.
Well, they're going to try, but it's great because the other side is in way more disarray than we are. Like right now, this happened like the week we're recording this. The Democratic Socialist people were literally out there saying, "You're next," at the leader of the House Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader, and like, "Oh, we're going to come for you next." Like, okay, well, that seems like you have a little bit of discord on your side, whereas on our side, everyone's having fun. And
Well, that's why their only strategy is to try and is to make artificial discord on the right.
And look,
but that's good because we'll never be as discordant as them, no matter how well their op works. They're in complete free fall.
So I consider myself one of the most informed people on politics ever. I'm obviously quite arrogant.
That's ever lived, probably.
I have no idea who's actually in charge of the Democrats right now. I have no idea. It clearly wasn't Joe Biden.
Right.
And look, my worst prediction of all time, I thought Joe Biden would stick it out. Right?
You thought he was going to stick it out?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And I thought that too. Because I was like, Kamala's just a downgrade.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're going to lose anyways, then at least look like you tried to do something proactive. Maybe that's the strategy.
And my theory is that whoever was doing it, the little cartel which runs the party, was basically very embarrassed by how publicly humiliated he was in that debate. And it was much more of because electorally, I can just straight up, Joe Biden probably would have done better than Kamala.
No doubt. Because they lost all their centennials.
Yeah.
That's why the politicians get older and older.
Yeah.
Because you need to keep like your original it's like in the Roman Empire in times of corruptions, the leaders would get older and older and older because they couldn't like create a new figure with authenticity. So if they just shifted off of an old one, they would lose like the elders' support. And it's like actors, right? All the actors are old. You can't make a new superstar anymore in the Hollywood system. You would need like to start a new Hollywood that did a bunch of medieval epics like the Western Saga, and then you'd have like new popular actors pop out of that. But you need,
So let me put it this way.
Go ahead.
Joe Biden, I think it was completely fake, but Joe Biden had some working class appeal. He actually kind of was from Scranton, the most critical state, right? Pennsylvania was the entire thing. And like none of the swing states, Kamala polled better than him in. None of them. She just didn't. And also, and this is important, Joe Biden is America's crazy uncle. People kind of like their crazy uncle. Kamala Harris is America's crazy ex-girlfriend. No one likes that. The vibe she gave off what a friend called strong assistant principal energy. Like that middle managerial class.
Yes.
Like,
that's such a great point.
Very unimpressive, is this lady seriously in charge? And she was also crazy enough that she was threatening. No one was threatened by Joe Biden, even though he was evil. He was too old. Like that was actually from electorally, that was what helped Democrats a lot. Because you look at Joe Biden, you look at the age, you're like, I'm not scared of that guy. He's gonna fall over. Whereas with Kamala, she was scary.
And those people were making the calculation that Trump is disruptive, Biden is not disruptive. And now you ruin that calculation for them because you've got two potentially disruptive guys, and including the one that on their side they don't trust. You're right. So we were like, is that an unpopular opinion? Because that's 100% true. And that's why we were correct to predict that they would not replace Biden with Kamala, because there was no incentive. There's no incentive to do that from an electoral perspective. But probably the incentive was they realized they were going to lose anyways. So maybe they were trying to like prevent the collapse that's happening now by being like, hey, we're not old sticking with Biden. We're bringing in the new women, the new people, like the younger people like Kamala, even though she's like 60 or whatever. And so maybe it puts the Democrats in a better position with their base.
I think it was panic too. I think it was just panic. Like they thought they had to do something. And I also they couldn't go past her with a primary, right? They couldn't do that. They knew they couldn't. People would have gotten really mad. So they just said, okay, we're just going with we'll have to go with her. And if she loses, she loses. And they tried to like very much force the whole like joy and vibe thing because they couldn't run anything else.
They're like, we're having fun.
And whenever someone has to say, like, look, I actually am having fun, but like when someone's going, Yes, I am having fun.
Yeah.
See this one?
Like the best life single woman videos who are like, I'm traveling and I have extra money because I don't have a kid. I'm having a great time.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
the same vibe.
If you have to say it, you're not doing it. But like it's such a, again, like getting involved in politics is really like going and creating a business is obviously probably more fun. I've never done that really, but
Mhm.
it's really, really a great deal of fun to work in the political space.
Yeah, that's a good
And
message for
yeah,
people that we can close on. Like, what's
you
the
can get,
what's this huge opportunity gap?
yeah, there's not a lot of people in it, right? It's a very small,
Mhm.
like I personally know most of the people in it. Like
Right.
it's not that big a space. There's not a lot of people in it. You can have a lot of fun. You get free lunch most of the time, which is awesome.
Mhm.
There's this great thing on the Hill. They have like various lobbying groups will come in and they can never give you more than $20. That's the rule. But you can just
Mhm.
go and they'll like give you lunch. It's called Lunch and Learn.
Mhm.
You can just go and eat free lunch. It's
Mhm.
great. And everyone does
Right.
it. Um,
And you don't get
but
kicked out like a wedding crashing or
yeah,
something.
it's great. It's great. They want you there.
Yeah.
And like it'd be
Right.
like America's Frozen Food Coalition or something. And you'll like learn how frozen food regulations affect them. They're actually a huge
Mhm.
lobby. They're funny. I actually like them.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
actually, some of the origin of the FDA was lobbied for by the
Yes.
first shipper packer companies that got refrigeration technology because it gave
The
them an
yeah.
advantage.
The American Beverage Association also does that, and they're great. That's America's soda companies.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
just like the AMA for soda.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't hate them because like
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
there's a distinction between what I call defensive lobbying and offensive
Mhm.
lobbying, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, right,
the ABA is primarily saying don't kill us, right?
right, right.
Whereas the AMA is saying give us your money, right?
Give us
Um,
control. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that like there's a big distinction there. So if you're a big
Mhm.
business, you need lobbyists, right? You need them to not kill you, right? I'm sure you've read Atlas Shrugged, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Where like I forget the guy's name, but the guy Reardon hires to run his DC operation who betrays him. I forget the guy's name.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
but like you
Interesting.
could every big business needs like someone to like stop you from killing them, right? Because
Yeah.
the natural inclination of bureaucrats is to kill anything new.
So you could
Um,
be that person in
you
DC
can
who
be that
helps
person,
who helps people. Yeah.
and you can save them. You can make a really good living saving them from these awful people who just want to destroy everything because they can't control it.
Yeah. And
And there's
what are some other jobs that people would like pursue in DC that are good-ish? Because
working.
this works like this way with organizations too, right? There's a lot of organizations, clubs that are run by now like increasingly older people, and basically they're just like desperate to pass
Yeah,
off the reins
yeah,
to anyone young who shows up and maybe
yeah.
doesn't totally spit in their face.
So all you got to do is go and find a candidate in your area and join the campaign. It's not that hard.
Mm,
And just go out, knock the door, talk about how your candidate's the best thing since sliced bread, and to every
mm,
single person, and do that for a summer. A good friend of mine, this is a completely true story. The most corrupt state in this country is probably Pennsylvania, sadly. If
mm.
you the best measure of corruption is to look at state legislative salaries, and Pennsylvania's is insane. I forget the numbers, but it's above 100K if to get
It could be
elected.
you,
Yeah,
viewer.
but if you so my friend, all he did, he went to college in Pennsylvania, and after the summer after he graduated, he went and he physically shook the hand of every single person in his district, and then he ran for and then he ran for the state house and he won.
Hmm.
That was
Hmm.
and that was his like that's what I'm gonna do with my life. I'm just gonna be a state house person, and
Right.
it got really involved, and it was great. And
You
he
can
got
do
to
your own mini version of great man theory,
yeah,
right?
it's really quite easy to get involved in this. The barriers to entry are very low. No one, as long as you win and accomplish stuff, no one cares. Working as Hill staff is actually a lot of fun.
Mhm,
I've done that; it's great. Uh, there's a whole lot of internships, most of which pay, which is very rare. And like
mhm,
if you're interning at an insurance company, like no one actually wants to spend a ton of time working on one pharmaceutical company's merger with another pharmaceutical company. That's very boring.
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But like if you're on a lot of people engage with politics recreationally. It's fun, right? And you'll spend immense amounts of time like thinking about it. And people just do it. It's like baseball or like football for people. They enjoy it. So like do something fun. It's not like a ton of money, but you can generally do pretty well. Like
Right.
again,
And you can make it a big impact, and there's a big upward trajectory. People actually said this about ag tech a lot, is that it's not a very competitive industry
right,
compared to others because
yeah,
it's not the hugest industry, that it doesn't attract people to it as much. And because it's agriculture, it's not as familiar to most people who are going to be going into an industry rather than just being on a farm. Because like farming is both farming but also an industry, right? So like people might, if they go to live in a city and go to college, they might be more likely to get into like electronics or healthcare or something.
mhm,
So there's a huge opportunity gap to make a big impact, and especially with everything so chaotic in DC, and there's this big opportunity, which is this is another really big disconnect because, like you said, the Trump administration is talking to us, and they're like, oh, find us a list of people, find us a list of people that we can hire, like libertarians.
yeah,
None of the libertarian orgs or institutes jumped on it. They're like so not used to thinking this way at all that they
yeah,
don't realize the opportunity. So that opportunity is for whoever shows up.
yeah. You
And
can
we
be
need
a very
our
effective
own long
policy
march.
entrepreneur. Yeah, you can be a very effective policy entrepreneur. It's very not that hard. That's and
Yep.
like I'm my background is again like in science stuff, and
Hmm.
like you get the president will like actually engage with your stuff,
Yeah.
and it's
How did
just
he? How do you send it to him? You just message it to the?
oh,
Did you?
I don't. I'm
No,
not
you
that
said it was
old.
the Elon that retweeted your thing.
Yeah,
Okay, right, right.
yeah. I don't. The Don Jr. has engaged with my stuff before, which
Okay.
the president's son.
And
But
you have a lot of good work on like nuclear deregulation and different
yes, yeah,
regulatory initiatives. So you'll be
yes,
able to find that from your Twitter bio, X
yeah,
bio,
please
which I'll
do.
put in the video.
Yeah. Again, like a lot of it, just the best advice I can give to anyone who wants to get involved in this is find some area that is not foreign policy and become interested in
Hmm.
that, like genuine interest. Because everyone and their brother is
Such a good
interested
point.
in foreign policy. And
That's the problem.
yeah, and no one, like, there is so many people who care about it. And most of them are like kind of dumb. Um,
Hmm.
so this is a true story. When my then girlfriend, now wife, is doing foreign policy stuff. You get like people have no idea what they're talking about in this entire field,
Hmm.
and it's largely irrelevant. Um, so don't get
All
interested.
irrelevant because Trump did a strategy that literally was not in any think
Yeah,
tank, any philosopher, which is also, there's also a funny parallel with this, right? Which was like all these pseudo intellectuals on the right talking about Carl Schmitt or philosophy or
yeah,
like what needs to happen or what we need to do or how we need to act. And Trump has a much better intuitive grasp on the role of the
yeah,
American right and what are the key factors than all
yeah,
of these guys who don't understand the economy. They're like they're like college professors. They're like
yeah,
leftist college professors who are envious because they
yes.
think they're smarter. But they don't actually understand how the real world works at all, and they have no skin in the game.
Pretty much all of leftism is the psychological phenomenon of people who are very good at school being very
Mm,
upset that the skills that make you good in public education are not the same skills that make you good at in the marketplace. Like
yeah,
sitting down,
except for
shutting
in
up,
healthcare because it's so regulated that those are the
yeah.
only people that get through.
But like in in school, like sitting down, shutting up, paying attention, sucking up
Yeah.
with the professor, that's rewarded. That's not what entrepreneurship is. Like it's the
Did you
exact
know
opposite.
the Did you know the story about how like all the most legendary West Point graduates were last in their class?
Yeah, yeah,
We do this
yeah,
thing where we always create systems that make it impossible to select for actually the best possible guy to be running that system. It's like the selection process specifically weeds out the highest potential automatically. Well, you can see this with Tom Brady almost not getting selected in football, right? Because it was nothing what they were looking for throughout college or NFL. Um, but like the factors that make the difference are not necessarily what people are testing for. Whatever people
mhm.
get in their idea in their head about what matters. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. And again, it's any institution. The great thing about politics is that it's inherently hard to institutionalize, right? There is no
Hmm.
standardized test, right? Like
Hmm.
Donald Trump's, look at Donald Trump. Like, guy had no political resume. He had not been the governor of whatever state. He had not been
Right.
like a congressman since wherever. And in all honesty, like, you have a lot of people. Every single person in the U.S. Senate looks in the mirror each morning and says, "I'm going to be the next president." And then every single
Hmm.
representative thinks, "I'm going to be the next senator." And then every single city council guy is like, "I'm going to be the next representative." They all want to
Yeah.
get promoted, right?
Yeah.
But like Donald Trump, and they really view that resume as this huge thing. Donald Trump had no political,
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
right? And that was why people liked him, right? He was authentic.
Yeah. There's still people in DC, and it's actually kind of still true that you need an Ivy League degree to even try
Oh yeah,
to like get into certain networks. And like
yeah,
that's actually still kind of
yeah,
true, even though it's such an outdated mentality.
yeah.
Like going into it now probably won't with that mind frame won't work out in 10 years, probably not a good investment, but it
No, it's not.
still is it's still a bonus. Like it's
Look,
still paying out.
those papers behind my head right now are my degrees.
Right.
My wife's degrees. Like, I went to a very good school. Like, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Don't do that.
Yep.
I spent a lot of
Oh yeah.
time and money and effort going to my like very name brand blue chip college, and like they don't. And they actually very amusingly. So I graduated and all that stuff, but like they refused to put me on the alumni list because they thought that because I said stuff about global warming. um,
That's hilarious. Well, they're gonna regret that
well, they
someday.
did. I mean, it's really.
Yeah.
I tell you, when I became a big deal at on House Science, it was really
Hmm.
funny to watch all these professors who had really hated my guts for a very long time be like, "Hey, how you doing, man?"
No way.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I have a big mouth and I like to talk about politics especially in college. And but everybody, that's the best part. One of the best parts of it is that you can get a lot of like high alpha return, and it's enjoyable. And like again, like
Yeah.
if you're having fun, just go run for mayor. Why not?
Yeah.
Like it's
All
fun.
right. So those are the takeaways, guys. Have fun. There's a lot of opportunity to disrupt stuff and take over stuff. A lot of it is just like being demoralized into not acting is the only way that they can win. So
Never
this was a
black.
really great, never black belt, as Charlie Kirk said. And I'm sure, I mean, you knew him, so you could tell us. I don't think he would be all too pleased with how a lot of people have reacted
He'd
to
be
his,
furious.
his death to undermine his is to use his death to undermine specifically his mission. Seems like something he wouldn't like, and I feel like if he was here, that would be obvious to everyone, right? Everyone who claims that like all these crazy Israel obsessed people who are saying Charlie Kirk was killed because he was getting woke on the issue or something. I bet it's like when you stand up to a leftist to their face, right? If Charlie Kirk popped up in front of him, it's like came back from heaven and popped up in front of him, I bet every single one of those people in their guts would know exactly how he would feel, and they would react, they would cower, they would apologize. That's like how they know how that conversation is going. Even if they disagree with him and hate him and just pretend, they would know he's not gonna like what they're saying. So like, let's cut through the bullshit. And I'm really glad you got to spend time with him and work with him. And that's a great thing. And let's all like go in and fill those shoes. So I think that's a pretty good call to action.
Well, but thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just tell people one more time where they can find you.
So I am Andrew C. Follett on Twitter, or what's now called X. I work for the National Review, and you can go find me there.
Excellent. All right. Pleasure, Andrew. This was awesome. Great conversation. And yep, let's talk soon. Peace.
Peace.